This is the Horse Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wood.
And I'm Jennifer Connor.
From Equestrian Businesswomen, and you're listening to Equestrian B2B, the podcast that brings together industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and equestrians for conversations about how they build and sustain a successful business.
On today's show, we are speaking to Ariana Vestino of LaFash and Connie DeMaio of Redding Goat about being entrepreneurs and how they started their businesses.
Redding Goat co-founder Connie DeMaio is a lifelong equestrian and a professional rider and trainer. She first conceptualized the quintessential equestrian coverall while enduring long, cold days of training at the barn where she worked and while taking students to compete at shows. Connie needed a garment that would keep her warm and clean while spending hours outside in winter, but could easily be shed when she needed to get on a horse and ride. She needed a coverall, but a coverall that could perform for her specific requirements and look good at the same time. She began Redding Goat, which produces innovative pieces for the equestrian performance apparel space. Redding Goat's fashionable and feminine pieces are all about function, comfort, and easy outfitting. The premium quality and design offer riders unlimited functionality in all settings, from long barn days to elite horse shows.
LaFash founder Ariana Vestino was raised in rural New Jersey, where she fell in love with horses and equestrian sport at the tender age of 3. After training and competing as a hunter-jumper rider, Ariana discovered her affinity for style and design and entered the fashion industry at 15. After continuing to advance her skills through education from the world's best design schools, such as Pratt Institute and Istituto Marangoni in Milan, she went on to earn positions that have connected her with some of the industry's top companies, such as Bergdorf Goodman and Harper's Bazaar. In 2011, after 10 years of research and development, LaFash was born. For Ariana, creating clothing for LaFash is an intimate process. In 2016, LaFash launched their first sport tech shirting collection, the Palo Alto Collection, geared towards the athletic needs of riders in warmer climates. This collection also appeals to other athletes wishing to look polished and stay comfortable, especially in sports like tennis and golf. Ariana chooses to manufacture all LaFash products proudly in the USA in the New York Garment District.
The Saratoga Women in Business Spectacular is the first ever horse show created by women, operated by women, benefiting women's health, and showcasing women in business. This one-of-a-kind, extraordinary event is one you will not want to miss and is open to all competitors, both men and women, in the equestrian community. The Saratoga WIB Spectacular Horse Show is a USEF A-rated jumper 3-star competition from July 13th through 17th, 2022 in Stillwater, New York. The Saratoga WIB Spectacular will partner and collaborate with equestrian businesswomen on this initiative. Exhibitors and attendees will be offered educational opportunities throughout the show and beyond to meet, interact, listen, and learn from a variety of remarkable women willing to share information about their careers and the paths they chose. For information on how to support Saratoga WIB Spectacular, visit www.saratogahorseshows.com.
Hi, we're so excited to talk to Ariana and Connie today about entrepreneurship and the story of how they started their business. Thank you guys for joining us. We wanted to kind of explore how different people start their business, you know, where you get ideas from, where you get the motivation, the ambition, and things like, how do you find money to start a business and fund your dream? Or what do you start with one product and build from there? Or do you start with a whole line of products? Lots of different questions. So Connor will kind of get us started.
Yeah. So let's start with Ariana. And if you could tell us what inspired you to start your business.
Sure. So I was working in the fashion industry for about 15 years before I launched my business. I also have been a rider my entire life. So working in the high-end fashion industry, I would always see this equestrian theme, and there were so many like beautiful designers that were creating looks inspired by equestrian fashion. But at that time, I felt we as riders just had nothing cool to wear. It was like my personal style going to work, and then like what I wore to horse show or what I wore to ride. I'm like, what is this? So it was like boxy and uncomfortable. I'm like, this is not cool at all. So I'm like, we have to create something cool. And I took it one step further, and I wanted to create something not only cool for riders that could like move with you, but perform with you, but also that would appeal to those ladies that were like buying Ralph Lauren, buying Gucci, buying Hermes, that liked equestrian style. So I kind of was inspired just because I felt there was a void in the market.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was saying how if I could live in gym clothes half the day and riding clothes the other half a day, I would be so happy because I love my riding clothes.
Yeah,
They're so comfortable.
It's so important, I think, nowadays, because like women especially like wear so many hats throughout the day. So it's like, even if you're working from home, you're on a work call, you need to look a little bit polished, at least from here, down. And then you're running to the barn, or you're running to the gym, and you're running to do errands. And you want to kind of have one thing that you could wear throughout the whole day that will work for everything, right? And it's so hard to find something like that. So I always felt the way that I wanted to dress was, instead of just buying something that you can only wear for one day or one thing, buying something that you can wear multi-days or multi-avenues of the day. So I think I personally like to shop like that. I think it's obviously much more cost effective, but investing in great pieces that you can wear in many ways and wear many hats like you do.
Yeah. This morning I went from CrossFit to the barn to hold the horse for the farrier to a work training right before this. And now I'm doing this.
And you did it kind of like, you didn't change 4 times. You can't, you don't have time.
No.
I think it's really important to shop like that. And for me as a designer to design clothes like that for women like myself that just do a lot.
Yeah. That price per wear thing is really important to me. Like, if I'm not going to actually use it and wear it multiple times and get use out of it for the price that it costs, like, it's totally not worth it for me.
It doesn't make sense. Or even just buying something that's less expensive because you're like, well, it's only $25 for this shirt, so I'm going to buy it because I can just wear it here, and who cares if it falls apart. But you do that 20 times, versus buying something that maybe is $200 and it will last a lifetime and you can wear it everywhere. It makes sense when you kind of look at it in that perspective.
Yeah. In the long term.
Yeah.
Sure. Definitely.
And Connie, what inspired you to start your business?
Actually, this whole conversation is what inspired me to start my business. So we created a coverall for women and for riders, and we created it just for this, to cover up those fancy riding clothes or those expensive gym clothes, or be able to go muck out your stalls in the morning, feed your horses, covering up your work clothes, and then go grocery shopping or go to the gym, or, keep your breeches and long sleeves on top and then do all these things, then go ride your horse without destroying these expensive, fancy riding clothes that we love to spend all of our money on. So I really never thought I would have an equestrian clothing line. I've been riding horses since I was a baby. My dad was a trainer, and living on a farm and working horses was just second nature to me. And it was just more a lifestyle, not a hobby. And I was teaching when I was in my young 20s, which we all tend to do in this industry, especially being brought up in it. And I always had this old coverall because I wanted to protect my riding clothes, and I wanted to be able to keep clean and look professional while teaching these lessons in a cold indoor or outside in bad weather. So I'd always have this old clunky coverall that I literally picked up at a yard sale for $2. And I wore it everywhere, and I wore it every single winter. And it was just so much easier than wearing multiple layers on top. Underneath my breeches, I'd have to wear a pair of leggings, and then I'd have to wear my breeches, and then I'd have to wear, an Under Armour top, then my nice top, then a vest, then a jacket. So it was just so much easier to wear a coverall. And I was literally standing in an indoor one day, working, teaching lessons, wearing my coverall, and someone came up to me, as they have many, many times, and said, "Hey, where do I get one of those?" And I said, "Oh, I picked this up at a yard sale." I went home to my fiance at the time, who's now my husband, and I said, "I think I have this idea." And I talked to him about it, and he's like, "That's a great idea." And I was teaching my business partner, Allison, at the time, and she's from the fashion industry. And I was telling her this idea, and we went to dinner one night, and we created Red and Goat. And that's how we started our business. I really never thought I'd own a equestrian clothing line at all. But it was just something that I had an idea and we set our minds to it and we ended up doing it.
Oh, that's really cool. And so it sounds like it's pretty unique what you do with the cover up. Would you say that's the most unique part of?
I think so. I think we don't see this in our industry at all. I don't think that was available for equestrians or women riders or women in general to have a woman's coverall. So I think that's what makes us so unique and different from all the other fashion companies out there or fashion brands in this sport. So that's what our main focus is. That's what we do. We're an equestrian outdoor company.
Okay. And Ariana, how about you? What's unique about your business?
Well, like I had said before, I wanted to create a line that not only appealed to riders and obviously was super functional and aesthetically pleasing, but, for riding in the saddle, but also something that would appeal to people that liked equestrian style. So I think I was one of the people that helped to pioneer that stable to streetwear, stable to city movement.
I remember meeting you at the Hampton Classic one time. And when we first launched, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I remember you were very stable to streetwear the first time I actually saw that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because for years, equestrian fashion is so prevalent in the fashion industry. I mean, every fall, every magazine, it's all about equestrian style, the beautiful tweeds and the plaids, and it's always there. So it didn't make sense to me, why are we creating something just for riders? Why is it that we cannot create something that will also appeal to those that like equestrian style? So I have a lot of women that shop my brand that are not riders. And now my kind of more technical line of shirting appeals to people that like golf and tennis because it does the same thing. It's polished, it performs, it has technical performance. So going back to what I was saying before about shopping for items that you can wear in multifacets of your life, because women these days just wear so many hats. I think that that's different about my business. And, recently I launched an equestrian lifestyle boutique. So I carry a variety of other products besides riding clothes, but everything is kind of geared towards beautiful, great, uplifting basics, things that you can have, great sweaters, great belts, and not just people that ride come in. There's a lot of women that love that style that are like, oh, this is a beautiful belt, great quality and things like that. So I think not only my line, but also my store is a little different because it's a boutique that sells ready to wear. It doesn't just sell riding clothes and tack. It kind of just sells, I call it equestrian lifestyle, inspired lifestyle pieces.
Cool. And Ariana, what would you say is the hardest decision you had to make when you were starting your business?
Probably actually leaving my full-time job and just saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I had been preparing kind of to launch the brand for about 10 years. When I was sourcing, fabrics and trims for other projects I was working on as a designer, or when I was, styling photo shoots for major magazines, I would always snap pictures or buy clothing that I would see that had a great design detail or something that'd be oh, this would be great. Or you can do this theme, or this would be great for a riding pant. I kind of was preparing this major book of things that I could kind of always go back to when I actually was getting ready to design the collection. And then I sat down and I wrote a 25-page business plan. And I did that after hours, after my job. And I kind of just created this map for myself. I don't think anyone's actually ever read it but myself, but I created this map. What are the barriers to entry? Where am I going to sell it? Where am I going to make it? And I created this whole plan. So by the time that I was ready to actually pull the trigger and leave my job, everything was kind of already in place. And it was just actually creating the samples. And then 6 months later, I launched. So I think it was actually just saying, you know what? This is what I want to do, and it's now or never. And it came kind of a crossroads in my career where I had been recruited. I worked for Bergdorf Goodman as a stylist full time for them. And then I was recruited by Theory, which is, when I was managing basically all the styling and visual merchandising for all their stores on the East Coast. And it was a dream job. I always wanted to work for that company, and the money was great. And I got there and it was I guess I just have to put LaFash on hold. This is a great opportunity. And I was there 4 months and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I'm this is ridiculous. And I'm you know what? And again, I was my boyfriend at the time. We were living together. He's now my husband. And he just says, you know what? Just do it. And I'm yeah. And he's just do it. And it was scary. I did it. And I launched 6 months later.
Yeah. It is scary to leave something that's established and a steady income, and be able to take that leap and say, I'm going to go for it and put all of my effort into this one idea, because it's not really anything yet. Like you said, it was a plan on paper.
It was a plan on paper. And you just have to kind of, if you have something like that, and you just have to kind of just believe in yourself and just like push through and just like never give up and just continue just to push. And there's so many barriers. There's so many things. And just when you think everything's like smooth sailing, the next day a bomb drops, and it's like, it happens over and over and over again. And you just have to be like, you know what? I'm just going to continue pushing as much as I can to try to stay relevant and reinvent myself and try to, continue to push forward. And I think that that's like the best advice I could give to anyone that's looking to start a business. Really hard.
Yeah.
Hard.
And Connie, was it a similar situation for you? Did you have to leave something to start it, or did you start writing out
I think that I've always had like entrepreneurial spirit. My mom hustled hard when she was young, and my dad, we were all self-employed. So I think that was like sort of second nature. Like, I've been working since I was 13, and I always tried to do 400 things to make money at the same time. So I think that's more like ingrained in me. And so when I thought about Red and Goat, I was like, okay, well, how am I going to add another thing to my plate? And I was already pretty much self-employed by training horses and teaching lessons. And then I also started doing real estate when I was very young. So I had a couple of houses and rental income. So that sort of helped me. And I have a very, very supportive husband. So I think, Red and Goat is number one, like the prime focus, especially now because we have grown. But that first year or two it was first, but that wasn't my main source of income. So as the business grew, I sort of dropped off other things just to focus more on what we have now in store for us and, in hand. But I do still make money other ways too. So I think that, I think it's just, I never really had a 9-to-5. So it was sort of different for me, I think, but still scary, Never thought it would. I always wanted it to grow into a big business, and I'm extremely happy that it's like become what it's become. But it's hard work and, it's focus. So
was there anything, Connie, that you had to do to prepare to launch the business?
Yeah. So our like prototypes and product development was in that phase for a year before we launched. And I actually feel like that was probably pretty quickly, but it was harder for us, I think, especially because we had no idea where to make things. Like, we didn't know much about that at all. So just finding a manufacturer was hard for us. And it's honestly still hard for us. Like, manufacturing, it's like some secret service, like where people get their stuff made, which I get. But we've sort of figured it out, and we have a great manufacturer right now, which we're really happy with. But it took us a while to get there. And I had no idea in the beginning. We literally would walk. Allison lives in Brooklyn, and I'm in Jersey. So I would walk the fashion district of New York and like with my old coverall and be like, okay, this is what we want to do. And like, people are like, we don't do this. Like, that's how the first like 4 or 5 months went. They're like, no, we don't do this. So a lot of like research, and a friend of a friend finally told us about this one person, and Allison knew somebody. So we tested the market there, and we finally found our first, I guess, broker, and then who had factories somewhere else. And that's how we figured it out. But we had no idea how any of it worked. And it was just sort of testing it out. But yeah, it's fun. I would literally go out to the fashion district of New York, and they'd be like, no, like, we don't do outerwear. So it took us a long time, but we figured it out. I mean, it was hard. We had really
yeah. And Ariana, besides your business plan, what else did you have to prepare to launch?
Well, obviously the product and figuring out where I was going to make it, like Connie was saying, that's like a super hard part. I too had no experience in production at all. I was a designer and I was a stylist, so I know how to draw things on paper and how to throw it together. But I actually, in terms of manufacturing, I did not. So I was living in New York City at the time. So I was able to kind of, again, go to the fashion district, which we still manufacture in right now. And, I just went to I just called around to a lot of people, and I just went with my sample and tried to find, and I found a great factory. And they produced for me for the first 7 years, and they were just fantastic and great to work with. And the quality was great. And, but manufacturing is hard. I mean, you have to be on top of it all the time. I run all the manufacturing, so I'm in the factories and making sure things are, done. I'm in Jersey now myself too. So I'm able to kind of get to the city very frequently and to oversee everything. But, that was probably setting that all up was the major problem for me. I didn't want to launch and then find something. So I kind of launched with samples, and then I took orders. I did a huge party and I took orders, and then the income from that kind of helped to get inventory for me. So I kind of did it like that. Everything was on a shoestring budget. So I was able to use the money from my initial party. I think we sold 35 or 40 shirts that party. And then I was able to kind of use some of that money towards inventory. And it was I remember my first inventory bill, I was oh my God, what am I doing? This is nuts. But yeah, I mean, as long as the quality is there, you're going to have a good product. It's just when, manufacturing goes askew that you're ugh. But I was fortunate that I've always found great places that there haven't been too many fires. I've been always able to find a workaround if something goes wrong, but kind of getting product correct and making sure it fit everybody, making sure all the sizes fit everybody. I mean, that's really, really important. So I made samples in a variety of sizes. We tested the sizes. We tested, we did the magnetic collar. We were one of the first people that did that. So testing to make sure that worked. And I just gave the samples to and I'm sure Connie did this too, a variety of different people, trainers. I'm just just everything you don't like, just tell me everything you don't like, and I just wanted to know what people didn't like. And then I changed that and I tweaked that. And once we tweaked everything and it was perfect, then we launched at the party.
So Ariana, most of your funding came from pre-orders?
Yeah, I did pre-orders. I mean, that wasn't a lot. I mean, it was some of the, it helped with some of the initial inventory. It really was some of my own money, which wasn't a lot because I was, 27 years old. So it wasn't I had this boatload of cash that was just oh, here you go, I had a friend that she loved the idea and she gave me $20,000 and she's just here. She's still a silent partner for me. She owns, 10% of my business and she is very happy with how it turned out. And I'm so thankful for her that she was able to kind of just, give me some capital to start. I mean, it was not a lot, but that's the funding that I had for the first probably 3 years. Everything that I made, we just kind of rolled back into the business to grow as much as I can. And I just kept, my own personal life on the skinny. And I kept as much as I could on the skinny in terms of advertising and promoting and things like that. And it worked out really well. I started to go and pitch at young entrepreneur conferences. I did Fashion Vest in the city where I was in front of Damon John and kind of a Shark Tank type thing. And I got called in by a lot of big private equity people and I pitched for them. But I just kind of was I'm going to have to give up so much. And I don't know if I want to give up my entire business right now. Looking back, would it have maybe made me grow faster and bigger? Maybe, maybe not. So I just chose to keep the business. I still own 90% of it and I just grew organically. So I think there's pluses and minuses to doing it both ways. And I just chose the latter.
Yeah. I think with bringing in investors like that, it really depends on where you see yourself in the company. Do you need to have complete creative control and control over all the decision making for the rest of that company's life? Or is it something that, you're good to give up? And I think that's a very individual decision.
Yeah, because it's your baby, right? It's your baby. It's everything that you made and you created and you want it to stay. But, there's something great about you if you own 10% of $1 billion business, you still, you know what I mean, versus owning 90% of not $1 billion business. So it's what is it? What is better? So, and not every business that gets major funding like that is a success. I mean, sometimes it blows up. So it's a risk either way. I chose to grow it organically. Looking back, I think probably year 5, maybe I should have taken on private equity money. But I mean, I think it would have helped to excel it, because at year 5 is when all the knockoffs started, and Connie, that is definitely coming. So, that was a problem, and looking probably should have did that, and it kind of could have blown it out of the water, and I didn't. So I had a little problem year 5, and I still kind of have problems, but hindsight's 2020,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And Connie, where did your funding come from?
Good credit and a line of credit from my in-laws. So having good credit from Allison and I, and then a small line of credit from my in-laws. And we needed a lot in the very beginning, because our minimums were so high, because we're overseas. I don't know if it's different for, britches and tops, but our minimums were extremely high. So it was like a big risk in the beginning. But with that being said, I'm no risk, no reward, right? So we took out a pretty big minimum, and that year we sold out that first year. Then we bought more inventory the next year, and then the same problem. We've sold out again. So whatever we bought, whatever we sold went right straight back in inventory, but bigger inventory in buys. So this year it's been a little bit different, and the company made a little bit more money. So we bought a lot of inventory again this year, because we sold out everything so fast, and have a little bit of money left over. So we finally this year just paid back our loan that we took and all of our credit cards.
Yeah, I bet that felt so good. Didn't it?
So that was really good. And the thing with us too, it was really important for us to grow organically. We never a lot of our sales came from, just going to horse shows and telling everyone about it. We gave a lot of suits away in the beginning. We took on some sponsored riders, which really helped. And then some riders approached us. So that where we saw a lot of growth through our social media and our sales. And we sponsor a lot of things. So we did it that way. But it was really important to us to grow organically as well. We wanted to make sure people heard it from word of mouth, instead of I don't know, a big buy of some marketing, I guess. But which we've seen, and a lot of our sales are, direct to consumer, or, we get it from Instagram. And we have a handful of really great retailers that approached us, or we approached that first year. We were just cold calling a lot of tack shops, and met people at trade shows, and they picked us up. So that's how we really grew. And, but yeah, the funding was hard. I was very lucky. I was very lucky that, I had great in-laws to help us. That's how I did it.
How did you get them to buy into your vision? Your in-laws did?
Well, we came up with a business plan, but I think they just thought we had a really good idea, and they believed in us, and they have a really good relationship with my husband. So they're like, yes, for you. So,
yeah. And Ariana, how did you get your friend to buy into your vision?
Well, she was a rider as well. So she kind of understood where I was coming from. And I think that she just, I was successful in my own right already, as, a stylist and a designer in the city. So I think she knew I had the experience in the background to be able to pull something like that off. And just people that know me, I'm just kind of a go-getter. And I think Connie was saying this before, that she always had an entrepreneurial spirit and worked from a very young age. And I was the same way. I was always, I always wanted to push myself to do bigger and better things in every aspect of my life. So I think that she kind of knew that about me and just took a chance. I mean, that really is what it is. So it's a chance, and sometimes investments work out and sometimes they don't. It's a gamble. But, I think because of her investment, as well as my own entrepreneurial spirit or my own inner drive, I think I didn't want to let her down. So I pushed harder and harder and harder, because of that.
Yeah. So whose brother was very good friends with Barry Schwartz and Calvin Klein in college. And she had told me a story about that's kind of how Calvin Klein had gotten started, was that his friend Barry invested in him, and that's how he grew his brand. So I think that sometimes it's great to have your friends, and maybe they push you a little harder too.
Sure. And Barry, I think, still is his partner. Calvin. Wow. They sold everything, but it's an amazing story.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the right people, come into your life at, the right time, and they believe in you, and they want to push, and they want to take a gamble with you. And I was very lucky with with Sue, she was, very helpful for me. I mean, it's not like it was a huge amount of money, like $20,000, like now is like, business wise, not a lot at all, but it helped me kind of just get samples and a little inventory and do the party and like push. And, it was gone in a bat of an eye, but
right.
it was helpful to have that at least to start. So, and then I, didn't really pay myself and kind of just use my own personal money to kind of, reinvesting back in the business, all the money that we made to kind of continue to push forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, Connie, what would you say are different challenges that you had starting out versus what you have what challenges you now?
I mean, we have a lot of challenges every day. There's like probably something else that we learn we definitely learn as we go. In the beginning, I think the manufacturing was really hard for us. Figuring out what fabrics to use and what not to use. We had an idea, but we wanted to make sure that, everything we used was high quality and functional, because we work really hard as riders and horsewomen. So we wanted to make sure that this was going to be a piece that could last for years rather than just 1 year. Like, we're extremely hard on our coverall. We want to make sure it stands up to the test. So that was really hard, like figuring out what fabric wasn't too loud and wasn't too soft, had a good rip stop, was still waterproof. All of those things in the beginning were extremely hard. And just now, I think adding, like, what do we need next? Like our second generation suit, we didn't have a hood on the first one. So on the second one, we added a hood, but all the fabric stayed the same and the insulation grade stayed the same because we didn't want to make it too hot to where you had to strip down in the winter, or make it too light where you needed another layer. So those things were very challenging in the beginning. It took a lot of research and development in that first year. And we finally landed on something that we both loved and a lot of the riders loved. So we tested out a lot. And when I threw it to a lot of different friends that taught all day long or rode horses all day long, and just got feedback from them. And I think challenges now are, what's the next step? Where do we go? What horse show to go to or not to go to? We want to really branch out. Like, we're an equestrian clothing line, but we see a lot of skiers and hikers and a lot of women fishermen are wearing it. So like, how to expand into that market is something that we have no idea. Like, the reason, like, I think we do so well in this industry is because I know it. And, Allison knows it just as much now. So we pick and choose what shows or what discipline is the best for us. And I think expanding and branching out to like those industries, we don't really know much about it. So I think that's our challenge. Because challenge is now on like how to keep growing and keep getting bigger every year.
Ariana, I feel like you had something similar where you wanted to be able to provide clothes to people who weren't equestrians that just liked the style. How has it been for your business in dealing with challenges at the start to where you are now?
Definitely, challenges in the start, and I think that Connie can agree with this, is that our industry does not like change.
Yeah.
7 years ago, there was like no updates to like equestrian clothing for like 30 years. It was like, you're really
wool coats. Why are we still wearing wool coats?
We need like an update here. So
for the fox hunting is a big thing for wool coats, which I had no idea. And velvet helmets. Fox hunting, they love their wool coats. And velvet helmets.
It was super antiquated, and it was like, oh my God, we got to change this. And for me, it was, people just like ripped my stuff apart. It was like, what is this? Oh my God, this is horrible. And it was like, I'm like, oh my God, this is like so bad. Like going on the Chronicle forums, those people are
don't ever
do not go on there. I was like, oh my God, this is like terrible. And so I think the hardest thing at the beginning was like just to get people to try something new. And going back to what Connie was saying about the sponsored riders, I called two of like riders, like very well-known hunter riders that I did not know personally. I had no one that knew them. And I was just like, I'm just going to try to find their information. I'm going to give them a call. And it was Jennifer Alfano and it was Maggie Jane. And I called them and I told them my idea and I sent them a sample and they're like, wow, we love this. So I'm so thankful to those two ladies because they really like helped me push onto the market that was like so stiff and rigid about like accepting anything new. And like the first time I was at a trade show, people were like, you can't wear this in the hunter ring. And I'm like, no, there's a picture of Jen Alfano riding in Devon in the hunter ring and she's wearing it, so you can too. And they're like, okay. So I would say like they gave me like a little bit of street credibility. And I'm so thankful for that because it really helped. I think that really helped for people to like accept something new. So I think that was like one of my biggest challenges was just to get for people to try something new. And once people tried it, they're like, wow, this works and I can still wear it and it's approved and it's comfortable and this is great. And I think now it's definitely much more acceptable to like have something new in our industry. Like every day I see a brand coming out and pushing the envelope and, making things more and more avant-garde. And I think that that's great that, people are so willing to accept new things now. I think it's come a long way in our industry, our fashion industry in the equestrian world. But, for me, it's about staying relevant. How can I stay relevant being a brand that's been on the market for 11 years and there's so much new flooding the market all the time.
In the past, like 5 years, you see a lot more brands.
Sure. I mean, huge amount of brands.
It's insane to me. Like, I mean, it's great. It's awesome that we have so much to choose from now. But like when I was young, there was like, we ordered from one online store. Like we ordered from one place.
Yeah. There's a new boutique that's opening. There's a new line that's coming out. So, you have to continue to stay relevant. And it's like, what works for me year 3, 4, and 5 is not working for me anymore because, you go to horse shows now and it's like everybody has a booth at WEF now. I mean, there's like 650,000 vendors at WEF and it's like, you can't go there anymore. I mean, you can, but it's like you have to do way more in order to get people's eye because there's not, just vendor row. I mean, there's sticking vendors every single place that you could possibly look. And when a customer is walking by and there's 60 riding shirts choices that they can buy from, how are you going to get them to buy yours, especially something that's not the new thing on the block? So I think kind of always reinventing myself, always figuring out different channels, always figuring out different customer bases and just creating newness within something that's existing. I think that that's my biggest challenge now.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point to make for people with any kind of product or service is kind of the relevancy for sure. I think anybody who kind of floats on what they've always done is going to get left behind.
Sure.
And it's not always new products, but, or maybe it's just an improvement or
different advertising channel, different customer base. And that's why I think I started selling, like I created my whole like lifestyle type thing because I actually had gotten injured. I broke my leg. I got kicked by somebody's horse and I broke my leg. And I was like, how am I going to run production? Like I can't move. Like I was not allowed to walk for 8 weeks. And then it was another 6 months until I walked normally. So I was like, what am I going to do? And it was September. I was like, the holidays are coming up. I can't run production. Like, what am I going to do? So I was like, you know what? I'll buy other people's accessories and I'll have it on my website and I'll sell that way. And, I can make money that way. It literally showed up to my door. I crouched over to my door. I moved my guest room was my new warehouse because I closed my warehouse because I'm like, I can't get there. My husband was gone all day. At work, I was home alone. It was like me and the cat. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I kind of figured out that, avenue. Like I can, have things show up at my door and I can curate different things and you sell like a normal boutique does, but it kind of goes along with my line and what inventory I have left. And I'm just going to do it that way. And that developed into the store I have now because that concept was so successful. But I probably would have never did that if I didn't get injured. I would have never even thought about that. So, and actually I kind of like it because it's like, I don't have to figure out how to make everything. It just shows up. I'm like, this is great. So much easier. So I just think, and I think also the pandemic really, it showed business owners what to do and what not to do. It's not always do the same thing and not sell only through one revenue channel, because I think the vendors that were only going to the horse shows and not showing or not selling any other way, when the horse show shut down, they're like, what are we going to do? And then they had to build a website. They had to build a social media, and it was like starting from scratch. And it was like, by the time I got everything running, it was too late. They were already almost forgotten about because it was months later. So I think that that's really important to, always have different revenue streams and always sell in a variety of ways and always constantly be evolving and working in different avenues for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to me, it sounds like in order to be an entrepreneur, you kind of have to have some flexibility to your personality, right?
Yeah, it's super important to be able to do that. And you just have to, like I said, as soon as you think everything's going great and you have it all figured out, a bomb drops the next day. So it's like, you can never say, this is it, I've made it, like I'm successful, because it's just gonna, you're either gonna get copied or you're gonna, there's a bomb that's gonna drop, you're gonna get injured, you're not gonna be able to work, whatever. And there's gonna be a global pandemic. Who saw that coming? That would ever happen in our lifetime, where basically the world shuts down and you have to figure out how to kind of keep on keeping on.
Yeah. And Connie, what other qualities do you think an entrepreneur should have?
Definitely, expect to work hard. Like, it is not an easy ride. It's just, again, like every day it's something different. It's not as, I love doing it. I think it's everyone should, like, if you have a dream, absolutely go and do it. Like, don't sit there and wait for something to change. Like, if you have an idea, my husband's calling. If you have an idea, go for it. Like, if it's something that you think about every single day and sleep and dream about every night, then you need to do that. Like, that's what you should be doing. Why waste 3 years dreaming about it when you could be 3 years working on it? If anyone has an idea, like, go for it, do it. But, set it, get it, that kind of motivation, like, keep dreaming about it, and eventually it's going to come to you. But it is hard. It's very, very hard. Like, knowing where to go, knowing your market, knowing your clientele. You're always learning something new. And, that's what I think. I thought of something one day, and now here I am, an owner of a clothing line. So I just believe that if you are always dreaming about it, then you should absolutely go and do it. And I think to any of, like, us horse girls out there, it's not just if you're in love with horses since you were young, it's not just being a big rider. It's not being a big horse trainer. It's not going to the Olympics. Like, there are so many different ways to be involved in the horse industry nowadays. Like, I always thought I was going to be a trainer and rider my whole life, or a vet, right? And girls that I taught, the same thing. They dream about going to the Olympics, which, if that's your dream, I hope that you get there. But I also think that within our industry, like, that's the only things that you think are available. And it's not. I see so many clothing brands now. I see people doing podcasts. I see magazine owners. Like, there's so many different avenues to go down in this industry that I had no idea even existed when I was young. And I just think that young riders and young girls should, there's other options out there. If you think about owning a clothing line for the equestrian market, go and do it.
Oh, I agree. When I was younger, I didn't know all the options. I thought you were a trainer. I thought you were, I thought I had to go to school for business to be involved in. I wanted a good job to support my riding. I didn't want to be a trainer. My parents trained race horses, and I always felt like it was week to week. And I always hustled and had 8 million different jobs. And even now I find myself, I work for an equine pharmaceutical company called DECRA. And so I sell Oslo.
Had no idea that was available.
Right. And I didn't know that would be available to me. And I kind of fell into it. People just have to be creative and, open your eyes and kind of look around and see what other options there are, for sure.
Talking about it too. Like, I think this podcast here, it's like, I listen to your podcast all the time. I think there's so many different things, out there. And I think it's great that these are now available for young riders to hear about,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Connor, I was the same way. Like, going into college, I was going to get a business degree so that I could run a better business being a rider and trainer. And I took German as my minor so that I could go to Germany and buy horses and speak the language. And halfway through college, I'm like, no, this is not, I'm not doing this. And then I was going to be a lawyer after I graduated so that I could
support your
afford to buy horses and ride. And then I realized that I absolutely hate arguing and conflict and all of that. And I was like, I'll be a terrible lawyer. And then did the whole grooming thing but then was able to use my marketing degree in a PR and marketing part of the equestrian world, which I never saw myself doing. So like you said, but I do think with the growth of the industry, it has opened up so many more avenues for people who love the sport and still want to be involved in it, for sure. And with that there's so many more ways to be an entrepreneur as well. And
there's little nuances in the industry that people don't think of, that it's like, people be involved in the equestrian industry. Like that's, what they live and breathe. But they want to, like you said, be in PR or be, a lawyer or be, have a business in some aspect. It doesn't just need to be running a horse business or running a buying and selling business or a riding business or being a professional. So it's nice. And I always think like when you're the happiest, you do the best job. And I think, that is really what success means to me, is that you wake up every day and you're happy doing your work. And of course there's days where you're just like, oh my God, I just want to kill someone, or oh my God, I just forget everything. Like I'm going to go work for someone, forget it. Like it's just done. And there's definitely days more so than not that I think that way. But, ultimately, like I love doing what I do and it's really rewarding for me. And I think that's so important for people to find something like that in their lives that, work that's rewarding for them.
Yeah, and it keeps involved in something that we love doing. Like we love being around the horses.
Yeah. Sure.
So that's our everyday, that's our everyday. We're thinking and breathing and riding horses.
Ariana, what would you say in terms of being an entrepreneur and running your own business? What are your favorite and your least favorite tasks?
Definitely the creative aspect of, my business is my favorite thing. That's kind of, just my mind's a creative mind. So, everything from merchandising to designing products to buying products like that for me. I mean, I get so excited like when I get like, my new collection comes in or, just a box of clothing that I ordered that I'm like, I'm just a fashion person. I just love fashion. So like I get really excited about those things. And definitely helping customers. Like that was one of the things, like when I opened my brick and mortar boutique, I was like, I've been in business for about 9 years now. I've been doing a lot of the same things. Like, what do I really love doing in this business? And it's, setting up the stores at the horse shows and selling to customers. Like that's like one of my favorite things to do. So that was what I was like, let me just do that full time. So that's what I had the store for. Hardest thing is definitely putting out fires, and there's a lot of them. And it's like, just like I said, I think I said that a few times already in this podcast, like just when you think things are going smoothly, a bomb drops. And it's usually always with production. It's still hard. Connie, I'm sure you agree with this. It's still hard. There's still a problem always, all the time. But, you just have to stay calm. And I say it all the time now. I try not to get stressed about things I can't control. So I try to just calm myself and just say, okay, let's just take a breath. Let's figure this out. And that's like kind of my motto these days, like my factory in the city was 10 weeks backed up because of the global supply chain. So they were like, listen, we're not taking any new work now. So I'm not allowed to deliver for my May delivery like I do every year. Wow. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, we're just going to have to wait until they're ready, and they're ready now. And we're going to deliver in July instead of May. And guess what? It is. So those are things that like I've just learned over the years that it's, you just have to, it sucks, but you have to just kind of roll with it a little bit. So it's definitely like the worst part of being an entrepreneur is that you have to make all the decisions. You have to take the hit all the time. You have to figure out the go around all the time for everything. It always relies on you. So that's kind of the worst part, I think. But at the end, I think it makes the better days even better.
And Connie, how about you? Is there a part of it that you love more than others? And what's your least favorite task?
Okay, so my least favorite task is figuring out new colors and what to do next year. That is like at least more or less the opposite. Like when I have to go through the Pantone book, I'm like, oh my God, there's a million colors here. Like, what's going to be a good color? Because we can only introduce so many colors every year. Like we can't do every single color in this Pantone book. So it's like, okay, what are riders wearing? So it was blue, like navy and black. That's what they wore in the beginning. Most riders tend to go to that color. So then every year we're like, okay, let's launch something different. So doing that and picking the color for the next year, like we always have 3 colors navy black, and a new color. And then we introduce a new color. So there's always 4 different colors of our coveralls every year. So when we have to think about that, when Alice and I sit down and we whip out the Pantone book, I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. I'm so stressed out about it. What are people going to like? Is this too light? Are you going to see dirt? Is this too dark? We heard that the first year, like, oh, no one will ever wear that, because we get horse hair and dirt and spit on us. So that's one of my most stressful things. But the best part about it is when you see people wearing your product. Like, I think that is the most amazing thing, that it is out there and people actually use it. Like, that is my favorite part of it. And going to a horse show, or even like this year, especially this past winter, I've stepped into barns and I've seen people wearing it. I'm like, oh my God, this is like for real. Like, people actually wear our stuff. So this year was probably our biggest year, where I've gone to multiple barns and people know the brand and are actually using it and wearing it. And then when we go to trade shows, one of my favorite things is, like, Allison and I still go to trade shows. We're not a brand that sends an employee there. Like, we are working these trade shows and we're working the horse shows. So when we're talking to people and, doing our spiel about what Red and Goat is, they're like, oh, you guys work for them? And we're like, no, we own it. And they're like, oh my God. They're like, yeah, you girls rock. Go for it. I can't believe you're the owners. And we're like, yeah. And then they love that it's like a women-owned business and it came from like this idea. And like, they love it. So that's my favorite part, is talking to customers, introducing ourselves, and like hearing a reaction and how they like it, or sometimes how they hate it. But yeah, stress. So picking colors, most stressful, talking to customers and learning about them, and, seeing the product out there is my favorite thing.
So, Connie, what would you say success looks like for you, and how long did it take you to feel successful?
I still don't feel successful. I think we're getting there. I still treat this as like my idea in my head, or my vision is, to be, everyone knows us. Like, we're well known. Like, if you need a coverall or outerwear, you go to Red and Go for it. We're so involved, and I think we'll always be so involved. It's just like our baby. So like, I think that I don't see us topping out. Like, I just see us continuing to grow. Like, I don't think that it'll ever be enough. But I think that's just more my personality. Like, I always want more. So I just see us being really big, humongous, like number 1 outerwear company. But are we there yet? I don't know.
So you'd say in the future, the success looks like you're the number 1 outerwear equestrian. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I would like to see.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. And
That's a great
Ariana,
goal.
Ariana, what does success look like for you, and how long does it take for you to feel successful?
I agree with what Connie said, is that I do not yet think it's hard to say. Like, I don't know. I just think this, like, having your own business, like, keeps you humble, because as soon as you think that you made it, you don't. It's like the next day, it's like, oh my God, like, it's just tough. And I think that I consider myself successful in the sense that I'm happy, and I was successful in that I created something from scratch and it's done fairly well. But I don't really like to say it's a super big success, because tomorrow it could be all gone. And so it really relies on me continuing to push and just pushing my goals further and further. I've always been kind of a self-motivator. I've always, competed against myself in so many aspects of my life. And I always just want to do better and raise the bar for me. And I think that that's really important in terms of owning your own business. And you can't really look at what other people are doing and compare yourself to them, because everyone's situation is so different. And I think as long as you just keep pushing and keep going no matter what, and you're continuing to be happy in your space, I think that is definite success. But it's you have to keep managing it, because it can go away very quickly.
Mm-hmm. So at the end of every episode, we ask the guests the same 3 questions, and Connor usually starts with the first.
All right. So, Ariana, what is one action that women can take to make a big difference in their lives?
Definitely remain independent and always have your own revenue stream.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And Connie, how about for you? What is one action that women can take to make a big difference in their lives?
I don't know if I can top that one, but I think anyone, not just women, like you need to work hard. Like life is not easy. Don't depend on anyone else. Do it yourself. And I don't think it's just for women. I think it's for everyone. Like, do not expect things given to you, and don't accept things. I wouldn't even accept things given to you. Like, I work hard for everything that I got. I don't think there's an easy way. I definitely think work hard, keep your dreams big, and keep going for them.
And Ariana, what is the best habit that keeps you motivated personally?
Staying organized. It's super important to stay organized in both your business and your personal life. Just keep everything, super tight. And I think that it really helps you kind of stay focused.
And Connie, how about for you? What's the best habit that keeps you motivated personally?
Having structure and having a schedule. I have a 3-year-old daughter who's turning 4, and I am a hot mess all the time. But if I block out certain hours for work, I take some hours for myself, and to answer those emails. And I'm trying to do that in the time frame. So that's what at this moment has been keeping me motivated personally.
Yeah, the calendar is a necessity.
And alarms. I set a lot of alarms.
Oh my God, so many alarms and so many reminders. Like if I don't put it as a reminder, it'll just float away. It'll never happen.
I had a reminder pop up this morning that I wanted to check the girth size on my pony because I want to order a new girth.
I have a weekly reminder.
And again. Oh, I didn't do it again. I know.
It has to stay recurring, like watering the plants. I have a reminder to water the plants because otherwise it'll be a month and they die. And I'm like, shoot,
that's hard.
I did it again.
Yeah. Oh. Hey, Connie, what's your favorite horse movie?
Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And Ariana, how about what's your favorite horse movie?
Mine's Sylvester. A lot of people
I love that movie. My favorite.
I've never
love that.
seen it or heard of it.
Oh, I love that story.
It is my favorite, all-time favorite.
Yeah, so funny.
Is that
from Australia?
No, it's out of
Sylvester,
Texas.
It's in Texas.
Okay.
And she goes to Kentucky.
Yeah,
Have you guys watched Ride Like a Girl?
No.
Oh, it's a new one and it's good.
Gotta check it out.
I haven't watched a movie in a long time, but it was up at 4 in the morning with my daughter. And I'm like,
today with
I want to
them.
watch cartoons.
They're in similar business in apparel, equestrian apparel, and there were lots of.
I have to check it out.
Put it on my reminder list.
Another reminder. Pretty different. Yeah, very different. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you. This was so fun.
It was great. Yeah,
it was a great conversation.
Talking about the fashion industry,
I hope people get a lot out of it from hearing your stories and the motivation that comes from it.
The qualities that it takes. I hope it inspires to work.
Everybody.
Sometimes I think people
appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun, Connie. So nice to meet you and see you again. Good luck.
You too. I'm sure we'll run into each other soon.
Like Ariana said, having all of that responsibility and you are the one making all the decisions and everything comes down to you. Like that's a tough thing to handle. And not everybody can do it, I don't think, or do it successfully.
Right.
Whatever success looks like for you. But it's really hard to be the person who has to make all the decisions and it all comes down to you, whether it works or not.
Putting out the fires, right? Especially like somebody like you who doesn't love conflict, and I don't like conflict either. I think that's probably a really hard part of the business is when you actually have to put your foot down and put out a fire and you have to be the bad guy.
Totally. And I think sometimes it's a misconception that, once you have success, it's not a difficult process. But I think once you have success, it's maybe even harder because you have to maintain it. And entrepreneurship is basically about being there for your business 24/7. And that's also hard for a lot of people to understand is that, like Connie said, it's a lot of really hard work and you have to be able to put in the time all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the equine industry who can make that transition, because if you're owning a farm, running a farm, managing a farm, you understand that you have to put in the time, right? Horses depend on you. So you have to do that. But somebody like me, I understand that. And I decided that I kind of like having the break.
Yeah.
Like I like working for a company where I have a manager, and, if there's a problem, I can go to him and he can solve the problem for me. Because I spent so much time in the horse industry and committing my life to it, that I'm
Totally.
I actually like to shut down. Like I've learned that about myself.
Yeah,
And,
that's great.
And you know what? I did think it was really interesting how they both kind of felt like they weren't successful yet.
Yeah.
Right.
And Ariana's been in business for 11 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's had like huge success. So it's really interesting to hear that.
Yeah. And like, to know what people's kind of perspective of themselves is, like, and when we're looking from the outside, I'm like, oh, wow, LaFache and, Reading Oat, and how I'm like, oh yeah, those are like, look at them.
Yeah.
And then to themselves, they're like, I'm not there yet.
Yeah. That was really interesting.
I bet there's a lot of people out there that feel like that though.
Oh, for sure. Well, and that's like, everybody talks about imposter syndrome, and the way you look from the outside to others isn't how you feel on the inside. So, but I think both of them can definitely appreciate the success that they've had so far, but they don't feel like they can rest on that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I thought it was an excellent episode.
Yeah. It was great to talk to them. And I think people will be able to pull some really useful information from there.
Definitely. Find the links to today's guests and the show notes at www.eqbusinesswomen.com. Equestrian B2B is out twice a month on the 1st and the 15th.
You can find out more at eqbusinesswomen.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Find Equestrian B2B wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a review. You can have all 20 plus shows of the Horse Radio Network with you wherever you go with their free app for iPhone and Android. Go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network.
Now go build your business.